Hi, I'm Mr. Simons, and in this video, we're going to look at supply. So what we'll do in this video is we'll look at what supply is, we'll look at things like a supply schedule, how to draw the supply curve, and also the law of supply. So let's get into it. So in terms of looking at demand, for our purposes, we're looking at demand in terms of consumers, that consumers demand things in things like a product market. When we switch the perspective to supply, what we're instead looking at is firms. We're looking at the companies that produce the goods and services that consumers demand. So in our perspective, that consumers demand goods and services, and the firms, the companies, the businesses, however you want to describe it, they're the ones that produce the goods and services that are then purchased by consumers. So in terms of thinking about supply, what we're really talking about is how much of stuff that a firm is willing to produce, depending on the price. That at different prices, a firm is likely to do different things. You know, when things are sort of a higher price, maybe the firm can make a bit more money. But in searching for a more formal definition of supply, what we could do is we could think about that supply is the quantity of goods or services that all firms in a particular industry are willing and able to sell at different price levels at a point in time. So it's really thinking about, from the perspective of the firm, how much are they willing to sell at a particular price. So from here, we can start to think about the law of supply, just like the law of demand, right? But different. That if we go back to the law of demand, generally, as price goes up, quantity demanded will fall. That when things are more expensive, consumers generally want less. But it works differently in terms of the law of supply. So with the law of demand, if one goes up, the other goes down. That's an inverse relationship. With the law of supply, generally, as price goes up, firms wish to sell more because they can make more money in terms of selling more things at a higher price, more revenue, maybe more profitability. Hooray! So what we think about instead is that there is a direct relationship between quantity supplied and price. As one goes up, the other is likely to go up. That the law of supply states that as price goes up, quantity supplied will also go up. As the price of a good or service goes up, firms want to sell more to make more money, to earn more revenue. That's the law of supply. So what we might do is we might think, well, why does the law of supply exist? Why is this relationship one that holds in terms of economics? So we might think about two possible explanations. One is that as price goes up, the simple fact is that if firms sell more products or services at a higher price, they earn more revenue. So this is a supporting argument for the law of supply. The other thing to think about is that when price goes up, it's kind of like telling all those businesses in that industry that, hey, you can make a bunch of money here. It's like a signal to other businesses that they should increase supply to earn more money given price is rising. So if we're trying to understand why the law of supply is a thing, why it's true in economics, what we can think about is one, firms can earn more money, so they will supply more. And two, that other firms get the message. They get the signal that if they take part in this industry, they can also make more money. So in the next part of this video, we're going to go to the whiteboard, and what we'll do is we'll have a look at the supply schedule and the supply curve itself. All right, let's go there right now. Okay, so we're going to extend our discussion of supply now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at two extra components of supply. We're going to look at what's called the supply schedule. And then from the supply schedule, we're going to use that to then construct the supply curve. So in terms of the supply schedule, what we're really doing is we're kind of putting some numbers and details in terms of when the price is at different levels, what happens to quantity supplied. Now QS, that will come up a lot. So QS is just an abbreviation for quantity supplied, how much the firm is willing to supply at each of the prices we're going to list below. I really hate the way that P looks. Okay, so we've got price and we've got quantity supplied. So the supply schedule is all about setting out for the prices how much is a firm willing to supply. So this is a totally hypothetical example. What we're going to say is we're talking about socks. So this firm produces socks and we're looking at, for particular prices, how much is it willing to supply. At a price of $6, the firm is willing to supply 120 pairs of socks. So, but if the price falls, let's say that a pair of socks is now $5, that the firm is willing to supply 100, that it's not going to make as much revenue for the production, so it's going to supply less. So I'm just going to fill out the rest of the prices now. So what we can clearly see here is that as price falls, so as we get that fall in price that's set out here, that what will happen is that quantity supplied will also fall. And it will fall for those reasons that we've discussed, that firms are going to make less revenue, and also it will send a signal to other firms that this is not as exciting a business to be in. And that when we're talking about, okay, a fall in price leads to a fall in quantity supplied, that this is a good demonstration of the law of supply. To that, if we look at this kind of relationship, that there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied, that their movements will track each other, unlike demand, where it's an inverse relationship. Okay, so we've set all that up. Now let's move on to the supply curve. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the data, the information in the supply schedule, and we're going to graph it in terms of the supply curve. So just like with demand, what we're going to say is we're going to say that this axis will be price, this will be 0, and this will be quantity. Okay. And so then what we're going to do is we're just going to draw the points at either end, or I won't draw all the points, just to show you how it matches up. So that let's start at the top, right? So let's say, okay, the price is 6. Let's say that around here, this is $6. At $6, quantity supplied is 120. So those are those 2 points. It kind of looks like 126, 120, right? And then if we go all the way to the other end, let's say that when the price is at $1, that the firm is only willing to produce 20 pairs of socks. So what we're seeing here is that actually there is a different kind of relationship than with demand. That in terms of what we've got is we've really got a situation where if we're starting here at $1 and then we're going to go to here, when we get $6, that the supply curve will look like this. So this is very roughly what it looks to. What I'm going to do is just cheat, make those fit a little bit better. And that what we can say is that this is our supply curve. You can label it both sides if you like. But what we're seeing here is that direct relationship. If we start at $1, so let's say we start here and let's say that we move towards 6, that as we increase price, right, we're moving up that way, that what will happen is as price goes up, that quantity supplied will increase. So what we can see here in the supply curve is the law of supply being very clearly demonstrated. As price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. We've looked at what the supply schedule looks like and then what the supply curve actually looks like as well. Okay, so that concludes our intro to supply. We had a look at what supply is, the law of supply, supply schedules, and the supply curve itself. So in the next set of videos, I'm going to look at other elements of supply, including the factors that shift it, movements along the curve versus movements of the curve, and all those are linked to in the description below. So make sure to check those out. And also, if you need to go back and remind yourself about demand, well, you can find them in the links below as well. So questions, comments, put them, well, in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching.